Welcome to the Solid Verbal. The Solid Verbal.
Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40!
I've heard so many players say, well, I want to be happy. You want to be happy for a day? Eat a steak.
It's that woo-woo!
And now, Dan and Ty.
Welcome back to the Solid Verbal, boys and girls. My name is Ty. That guy over there is Dan Rubenstein. Yeah, this is a bonus verbal that you got tonight. It's a Thursday. We normally put a show out on a Wednesday. But
we did.
Dan Rubenstein, let's talk about this. Why are we doing this Q&A show? What's up?
We take our cues from the great Edward James Olmos. Are you familiar with his filmography, Edward James Olmos?
I'm familiar with Edward Norton, but Ed...
You know Edward James Olmos?
I have no idea who that is.
Okay, so he starred in, which I haven't seen, but he was the star of Battlestar Galactica, which I'm sure you've heard of.
I've heard of, yes.
He was not the star, but a co-star in La Bamba, the Richie Valens story.
Okay, yep.
You know, Para Bailar La Bamba?
Yep.
He is an esteemed actor, I think probably into his 70s now, and he had a role which I would venture to guess 71% of kids that grew up in Southern California at some point were forced to watch this movie in school, probably in 7th, 8th grade. And the name of that film was Stand and Deliver. And it's about an inner city teacher who teaches a bunch of kids who nobody thought would amount to anything academically, leads them to big AP calculus, I want to say, scores. Wow. Very inspiring.
Deep plot right there.
It's a deep plot. It's great. It's inspiring. And we take our cues because we, now, both of us, stand and deliver.
Okay.
We're both standing and we're delivering a bonus show right here.
I am standing. I'm hopefully delivering. I mentioned this to you before we hit record, but normally, now I don't know about you. Actually, I do know about you because we've been doing this for 10 plus years.
You're feeling 22?
Yeah, not going Taylor Swift with this.
Okay.
I don't feel like you have much of a radio voice per se. I feel like
I have the radio voice.
Well, you have the radio voice, but just in general, if you interact with you outside of our podcasting setting, the way that you talk, your cadence, all that stuff, it's kind of one-to-one. There's not much, there's not an additional layer, if you will.
Yeah. No, I'm what you see is what you get.
And I'm kind of like that for the most part. I'm the same human and my sensibilities are the same, but I do tend to project in a way when I'm recording that I wouldn't normally project. Like if
You're a broadcaster, Ty.
It's right. If Solid Wife Kate were here, she'd be downstairs and she would hear me yelling. I don't do that in real life. I'm not that loud, that boisterous of a person in real life. So where I'm going,
you don't sit down for turkey sausages and say, "Welcome to dinner."
Exactly.
You don't do that.
I don't project in that manner. So what I was thinking about on the way over here, because it was a long day at the office, as I'm sure so many of our listeners have experienced for themselves. Long day at the office, a little just worn down from the week. I am going to do my best to go sans radio voice tonight. So you're going to get raw, unfiltered, unfettered Ty right from the cane plant tonight. I'm going to do my best to not project and just give you as authentic an experience as possible. I'm not going to edit anything out. This is
Ty After Dark.
Raw and unedited. Yeah, this is Ty Unplugged, Ty After Dark, Verbal After Dark. That's what you're going to get here this evening. And furthermore, we haven't done a Q&A show in a while. We were doing these once a month in the off season.
Yeah.
If only because we had nothing else to talk about. And now we had to grow up and mature and all that and talk about real life college football stuff. But we still do get the questions. And we just wanted to give people a bonus show. Actually, there are going to be multiple bonus shows coming at you. Not just this week, but in the weeks to come, and which we can get into here in a little bit. But you were kind enough to solicit questions from, I saw a variety of different platforms today, yes?
Yes, and I this is like the asterisk to today's and the rest of the season's bonus Q&A shows, which I don't know how bonus they are for announcing them, but I'm glad we are announcing them because people can expect them, and it holds us accountable. The questions that we are answering are questions that have to do with the season itself. It's a mid-season Q&A, which will devolve into latter season Q&As, whatever. But we got a lot of really excellent questions, but like, hey, if you could be any kind of popcorn,
right?
And you had to be a popcorn eaten by SEC coaches, right. we will save those.
The coach questions are the ones. Those are the ones that we kind of strike, I think, almost instinctively at this point.
Yeah, your hypothetical coach questions. We've gone a lot of directions with those, but we've gotten a lot of like, I'm moving to a new city. What should I do for dating and a new job and apartment? We're happy to talk about those type of hypotheticals for us and but we're going to save those. For like February or June. Right. So we're going to attack the most relevant to the middle of the season questions that have been asked of us today. And then also, at least this week and next week, do you remember the episode? It was a flashback episode of The Simpsons where Homer was climbing up to a clubhouse in a treehouse, and they said it's the No Homers Club.
Yeah. Yep.
And then there was already a Homer, and it was No Homers. We're doing an Only Homers Club segment at the end of these episodes. Today, we are going to be joined. Well, I will be joined by Jeff Schwartz, and we are going to nerd out about the Oregon season thus far. If you don't want to listen to that, that's cool. Just stop the episode and move on with your life. Next week, we'll be doing some Notre Dame with a Notre Dame guest. And you're going to flex those muscles, Ty, that you've been yearning to stretch.
So many muscles,
And it is Squat-tober, Ty, as you know.
Sure.
A lot of strength coaches with the screw
Never
lifts.
skip leg day. Yep.
Never skip leg day. I am real sore standing and delivering as we speak. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm ready to dive in with some Q's and A's if you are.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I would ask, though, I'm really going to try to hold true on this no radio voice thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you've known me for a long time. Again, independent of the whole podcast thing. If ever I slip into radio mode, I want you to just go buzz or make some sort of noise.
Okay.
So that I can
try.
I can level set and kind of come back into just normal time mode. Okay.
I think the low point of your radio voiceness was when you told Mama H to follow you on Facebook, fan cred, Twitter. That was weird. And she didn't know what you were talking about. And we want the real Ty.
You're going to get the real Ty tonight. All right. Just make sure that I stay true to myself.
Do you have our Dave Letterman sound?
Hold on. Talk a little bit while I find it.
Oh, okay, cool. We've got a lot of good questions here. We asked for questions from Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, and solidverbal@gmail.com, to which any of those you can always send questions, but we got a lot of good ones. There's a couple of slightly off-topic sub-questions, but I feel like we are really going to hone in on stuff that is relevant to this season. Also, Ty is drinking, I believe, sparkling water. And tonight I am drinking a ginger turmeric tea with a little bit of honey.
Okay, I got it.
I'm treating my instrument.
Sorry it took me so long. I had to rebuild my soundboard.
Welcome back. I was talking about my tea.
Here we go.
Congratulations, Skippy. You've got mail.
You've got mail on the Solid Verbal.
That took a lot longer than expected because my soundboard app crashed on Sunday morning. When everything else crashed for us, so did the soundboard. And I've had to rebuild it, so all the buttons aren't in place yet. But as often as we can, here on the program, we try to pay homage to our verballers and whatever questions come in. So here we go.
That was a little radio voicey. It was a little radio voicey right there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
okay.
a little bit.
Continue.
It's okay. First question from Shoeless Sean. This is a good entry point. How are you two doing?
How are we doing?
Yeah.
Like
how's life?
As an item or just independent? What is this question? When someone says, "How are you two doing?"
Interpret it how you'd like. How are we doing? Let's say, how are we doing together in conjunction?
The show is doing well. The show is doing well. The show continues to grow. I feel like, and maybe I can only speak for me with this, but I feel like me personally and us collectively, we've really been able to dial up our personality and bring out more of who you and I are just as college football fans. So I think we're doing well, and the numbers would seemingly indicate that too.
Yeah, I think we're pinning our ears back and really getting after it. I think we are. Shoeless Sean also says, do you have any annual autumnal outings away from college football season as we enter into autumn. And then I promise we're getting into college football topics. I really don't, Ty.
No?
I'll take this one first. Outings, I don't have any kids. I live across the country from most of my family. So outings wise, it's just generally with Jody, and I, and we keep it pretty simple. We will go for walks. We have Central Park and Prospect Park, obviously, so only a slim amount of people can relate to that are listening. But I'm a big outdoors person, walking, running. I'll listen to a podcast while going for a walk. I like a good crisp air walk. So that's all I can really offer.
Okay. Well, I have an outing coming up this weekend. I talked about the 5K that I'm going to run.
That's right.
That I haven't trained for at all. And some folks were asking, like, is it a costume 5K where you get to run as Captain America? Or no, it's not. It's just a normal race over here in Bethlehem that I do every year with my family, which would be cool. It's also going to be Tyvember next month, my birthday.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a yearly thing. But no, beyond the usual stuff. We got trick or treat night coming up. Do you guys do trick or treat night?
Yeah, we actually just got an email in our building to sign up because there are some kids in our building to sign up so that they can knock on the door and get some candy. I think we're going to go big with the candy.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I
want to develop that reputation. I want to develop the full-size reputation.
I pulled an all-time old man move a couple months ago now as it relates to Halloween.
Would you give away some walnuts?
No. No, did I? I thought I probably told you about this, but I guess I didn't.
What?
I was up at Wegmans and I saw that they were offering the big bags of Kit Kats and I think the mini Snickers bars, or the Hershey
right.
bar.
Yeah.
They were offering some kind of sale. And I saw this and I was thinking back to last year where I didn't have any candy and I was just caught off guard, had to run out and buy a bunch of stuff. And they get you through the nose if you buy it late. It's like Valentine's Day. So I came home with like 10 deluxe bags of candy because they were $3 a piece. And I'm not kidding. I did this at the end of like July. And I came home and Kate said, what the hell is that? Why did you do this? I'm like, it's for Halloween, just so we want to be ready. And she's like, you do realize Halloween is 3.5 months away. And that kind of dawned on me that maybe I was turning into an old man at that point, but I am ready to go.
Yeah.
We've got Kit Kats and we've got, I believe it's those Hershey's miniatures. So we got a bunch of that ready to go.
Oh, great call. All right. Derek wants to know, and I'm going to give you some contenders here for you to choose from.
Okay.
Biggest surprise so far this year, good and bad. Okay. And I'm going to weld this. I'm going to bend it. Hopefully it's a malleable enough interpretation. Not just good and bad, but sort of disappointing, bummers, really cool things. Right. I'm going to give you some options here. Okay. All right?
Yep.
So these are the good, positive things that have been a little bit unexpected. Hawaii, 6-1. Cole McDonald's going for a ton of yards, being already bowl eligible after really low expectations. Colorado with a down couple years, but certainly surging even after the loss to USC. The magnitude of Tua's season, we figured he'd be good, not world destroying. Right. What Iowa has looked like on offense recently, because we obviously have an immense amount of loyalty to Nate Stanley.
I was told we're an anti-Iowa show now because we haven't previewed them 2 weeks running. Is that still the case?
That's on you. You set up our preview document.
I did set up the preview. You know what it is? When we veered strong in the direction of NC State, we veered away from Iowa. We became pro-NC State and anti-Iowa on this program.
There's some sort of law, is it Newton's law? For every reaction, there's an equal and opposite. I don't know.
That would be Sir Isaac
about
Newton.
Those two programs. Yeah. Buffalo and how good their offense has looked in a down year for the MAC. Buffalo has looked strong. And I would say Utah State State in the Mountain West. There are other smaller situations within teams, within programs, within conferences, whatever, that are interesting in a positive way. But those are the ones that I have right now in a positive direction.
Well, so I would push back on the Tua thing because it might be a surprise, the heights to which Alabama's gone, but it's still Tua and it's still an incredible safety net for him playing in that system, having all that talent around him. So he could be even better than he is now, and I'm not sure it would truly be a surprise, not for me. And also on the Colorado front, I'm afraid to say that we didn't expect great things from Colorado because of the angry, free-range Colorado hate that would come our way.
That's true.
As you know from reading the emails.
Yeah, compostable.
The answer for me is LSU, because
good answer.
when we did our AMA on the subreddit, reddit.com/r/solidverbal, if you're playing along at home, I think I said back then that LSU was going to go 7-5 and Coach O was going to get fired. It's apparent to me that that's not going to happen at this point. LSU clearly having a really good year, up to, I think, 5th in the latest top 25. Even if they fall off from this point forward, which I don't think is going to happen, it still is far going to exceed those expectations. So for me, I think LSU is definitely the good surprise. The bad surprise on the flip side, also in the SEC, would be Auburn. And I'm not going to say I was the highest in the world on Auburn, but for Auburn to be at this breaking point now, it feels like they're at a breaking point with this game this week against Ole Miss. I picked Ole Miss outright, and I think you went Auburn, if memory serves. Well, I should know this because we just did the show yesterday.
Yeah, I think I have Auburn winning. Yeah.
But it feels like they're at a breaking point. They have not gotten that rushing game on track. Jarrett Stidham has definitely fallen short of at least my expectations. So for me, they would be the surprise on the bad side.
Yeah, losing to Tennessee will warp some minds. This iteration of Tennessee, which I think Tennessee will be a pretty good program with Jeremy Pruitt, but at this point, losing that comfortably at home to Tennessee, that gets people's eyes popping open like saucers. The other contenders I have here, because I do obviously have Auburn there, and I don't know if I'm fully bought in as Auburn as the disappointment. They are definitely disappointing, but their defense has, when the offense hasn't totally let them down, they've looked good for long stretches of this season. I would say Wisconsin, just with what their defenses look like, Stanford, and that is, a multi-pronged explanation probably with losses and Bryce Love just simply not being healthy enough to really get there. The offensive line taking a step down. Khalil Tate's health.
Oh man,
I don't think anybody questions his ability, but what Arizona has looked like with Khalil Tate sort of just struggling to maintain health has been a pretty big bummer.
What about Kevin Sumlin at Arizona?
Yeah.
I expected a lot more on that front. I would also bolt on Michigan State, too. Michigan State, of course, beat Penn State a week ago.
Man, they just went to Penn State and beat them.
I know, and maybe they're turning a corner. But
wow,
let's say the first 5 games for Michigan State left me a bit underwhelmed.
Yeah, and then they've worked through their own injury and continue to work through their own injury issues. TCU's offense, I think, is pretty surprising.
Woo!
That they haven't been able to not even maintain, but look somewhere in the neighborhood of where they've been offensively. Yeah, with a new quarterback. Everything about Louisville is my answer. Think about the perception of the ACC right now. It's Clemson and some of Miami, and now Miami is losing to Virginia. So it's basically Clemson, and hopefully they continue to look good with a true freshman quarterback. Yeah, that's not a great reputation. It's okay to have one great team and the rest if you're the Pac-12, but the ACC, and especially where the ACC has been these past few years, really looking like one of the deeper conferences, a really good slate of quarterbacks as recently as a couple years ago. I mean, the ACC made Nate Peterman look good. Yeah. That was fun. And now he's a disaster. But think about our perception of the ACC right now if Louisville were pretty good. If the defense definitely took a step back, but if Puma Pass had worked out and they were competitive and fun, even if not a hugely winning team, you'd have Clemson, Louisville, and maybe to a lesser extent, Virginia Tech and Miami.
I assume that you're not mentioning NC State because we're just assumed to be an NC State podcast at this point.
We are an NC State podcast. How could you be disappointed with NC State?
Yeah. All right, let's do another one.
So Louisville cratering BVG. Can you rank the 2018, we got a lot of people asking a similar question. The 2018 coaching carousel hires.
Okay.
So
we're not going to
I will give you some names. But... No, I'm just going to give you some names, and I'm going to give you a head-to-head who you've been more impressed with within the context of what they have and what they've done and where they appear to be going.
Okay.
Joe Moorhead and Dan Mullen. Those two programs are related to each other, obviously.
Of course you would put those two against each other.
Of course. And they played each other.
Yeah. Dan Mullen for me is the answer. And maybe he's starting from a place where he had more higher level talent, but there was definitely more of a veteran presence for Joe Moorhead. And it's taken him a little bit to figure it out. I think Mississippi State's going to be fine. They've got a big game this weekend, which we should find out, obviously, a little bit more about the Bulldogs. But for me, I feel like Dan Mullen has reinstated a sense of hope at Florida, and that's really what they were missing. Felipe Franks has gotten better at quarterback.
Definitely.
Yeah, I would go Mullen, but Joe Moorhead's doing a good job in his own right, too.
And this is, potentially one of the most important hires when you're a head coach in the SEC. The Todd Grantham hire, defensive coordinator, has looked very good early. Sure. So, yes, I think Dan Mullen has done a strong early job for the Gators. Chip Kelly against Scott Frost.
Ooh. I guess I go Chip Kelly.
Okay.
At this point, is it fair to go Chip Kelly?
Yep. Yeah, I would say the battle that he has is probably a little more uphill because of the division he's coaching in at the moment and just the open nature of it. But I like the hire. I like the fit. I like the hire a little bit more. The thing I'd be worried about a little is recruiting seems to be trending in a better direction for Scott Frost in Nebraska than for Chip at UCLA. They have not really brought in any big names. It's been a sort of slow roll for them if you're looking into the future. So I actually may go Frost here. I may go Scott Frost.
Well,
yes, I think because he is on an ascension, whereas Chip Kelly isn't necessarily. I think I like that, the idea of Scott Frost shooting star a little bit better.
Okay. Yeah, I think you can make a good case for both of them. I'd probably go Chip Kelly. It just seems like they're figuring out the system. And UCLA, within the context of this season, is playing better. And if they do start to win, if he can get more of his guy, you hear it all the time, right? His guys. If he can get his guys in there, I think we could be in a position where Chip Kelly wins a little sooner than expected at UCLA.
Yeah, I think the good news for both of those that they have in common is incredibly promising true freshman quarterbacks thrown into the fire. Yeah, and there's an encouraging situation with both. Finally, we'll end with this head-to-head. Jimbo Fisher.
Yep.
I'll indulge you. Mario Cristobal. How would you rank their performances?
I like what Mario Cristobal is doing at Oregon. I like that he is trying to build a physical presence up front. Something that we talked about on the show yesterday. How he's trying to get more physical. And
trust me, Jeff and I will momentarily.
Okay. So I think that's an important step that we knew was in Cristobal's background, but maybe didn't expect to see so soon at Oregon. So that to me has had an outsized impact on how I feel about this comparison. A&M scares me to death. They scare me to death, but I think my answer here would probably be Cristobal by a hair because I'm seeing things I didn't quite expect at Oregon. Right. And on the A&M side, A&M's very good. Really soon under Jimbo, it's clear that he's having an impact.
Both inherited a good amount of talent on both sides.
Yeah, I feel like we should have seen this all along at A&M, and it's just taken Jimbo half a season here to assemble the parts and get them playing the way that they should have all along. Whereas Oregon, I didn't expect to see them playing physical football.
Yeah, and I'm measured about Cristobal because that Washington game was a probable Washington win, and so I'm not fully ready to fully hop on board with Oregon playoff contender, even though we got some questions about that. They're not a playoff contender. They're just not. I've watched every play of this team. They're not. The case for Mario Cristobal, though, is both with what he's done early, the level of competition that Oregon has beaten or almost beaten, and the same kind of goes for Texas A&M with how competitive they were against Clemson, certainly not competitive against Alabama. I'm a little higher on Cristobal, I think, right now, just because he doesn't have Alabama in his division, just because he has already beaten the class of the division. So within that context, I'm going Cristobal, but I think Jimbo Fisher should have Texas A&M threatening double digits pretty consistently.
My only caveat, if I could, If Oregon loses this week against Wazoo, I'm going to switch my answer over to Jimbo Fisher.
You're upfront about it. I respect that.
All right, where are we going next here?
Tom F. wants to say, and no, LSU beats Alabama, so that'd be in a couple weeks, and wins the SEC championship. So presumably over Florida or Georgia. Notre Dame and Clemson remain undefeated. Clemson wins the ACC championship. What scenario keeps Bama out of the playoff from there? So repeating the method by which they got into the playoff last year. Not winning the division, getting into the Final Four.
What would keep them out? If they...
So in this scenario, I'm going to give you a further baseline.
Yep.
LSU is in. LSU is in the playoff.
They win the SEC,
LSU,
they're in.
Right. So LSU, Notre Dame, Clemson. LSU in with presumably one loss, Notre Dame, Clemson undefeated. Who is that fourth team that keeps Alabama out?
Okay. Well, first off, I don't think there is one because I don't think the Big 12 is getting a team in. I don't think the Pac-12 is getting a team in. I don't think the ACC is getting a second team in. I wouldn't even know who that team would be. I think the only scenario that would keep Alabama out would be another loss somewhere on the schedule for Alabama. And I don't know if it's going to be the week after against Mississippi State, if it's going to be the Iron Bowl the last week of the year. But I think in a scenario where they've only got one loss.
You don't think an undefeated Ohio State would get in?
Oh, I'm forgetting Ohio State. Never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind. No, Ohio State would get in for sure.
Yeah. I would say undefeated Ohio State. I would say if Michigan runs the table from here and potentially beats Oklahoma twice.
I totally forgot the Big Ten. That's how long it's been.
I know. It's been a long day.
I apologize. Just strike everything from the record that I just said. I'm not editing it out.
Send Jim Delaney a telegram.
That's right.
Apologize.
My bad.
So undefeated Ohio State, yes. I don't think that's a question. I don't think that's a serious question. If Ohio State runs the table and beats Wisconsin or Iowa, I guess, in the Big Ten championship game, although not the most impressive, they're taking care of business and they scheduled well. Texas running the table, I don't think they will.
No.
But if they do, it's a bad loss, but probably not. What's worse, I guess, getting murdered by Iowa like Ohio State did last year, not getting in, or losing relatively close to a probably average Maryland team.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Beating Oklahoma twice is a pretty sizable feather. And then I would say Michigan if Notre Dame runs the table and that's Michigan's only loss, that's as good a loss as losing to LSU away from home, both away from home.
Right.
And that would then mean Michigan beats Ohio State in Columbus. They've already beaten Wisconsin. They would then have Michigan State wins and a Penn State win. And then, again, potentially over Wisconsin again and Iowa. I would put Michigan in over Alabama not winning their division if Michigan were to win the Big Ten championship at 12-1.
If Alabama has one loss and doesn't win the SEC, would you put them in over Notre Dame?
To me at this point, Notre Dame has a style point responsibility to me, to my eyes that mean nothing to this process.
Right.
Because Notre Dame has Florida State, Northwestern, Navy, Syracuse and Yankee Stadium, USC. I might be forgetting somebody. But especially after struggling with Pitt, who, by the way, is fully in the ACC coastal race at 2-1. Notre Dame they now have a style point responsibility to me. And if they play down consistently, I'd think pretty hard about it.
It's an interesting dilemma. I think that's the real dilemma here.
Both non-conference champions.
Yeah, I think that's the real dilemma here, and I apologize to everyone for screwing that up. Believe me, it has been a very
you're
long
okay.
day.
You're good.
But a one-loss Alabama against an undefeated Notre Dame, I think, is an interesting proposition. I'm a Notre Dame fan. Everyone knows that. Alabama.
Do you think it's a style point thing?
I don't know what it's a thing of. I think Alabama's a better team. I don't think there's any denying that Alabama's the best team in the country. To leave them out in favor of really any team, to me, is doing them a disservice because Alabama is so damn good. You got to win the games in the schedule. That is the system that we set up here. So if they lose, and depending how badly they lose, it's all hypothetical. Of course, you can make a case for leaving them out, but for me, that's a hard sell because I just think they're the best team in the country. They're blowing everyone out. These games have not even been competitive so far. But
we got my favorite question is one we're not going to answer, but it's related to that, to what you just and we just were talking about. And somebody asked about Ian Book's NFL chances. No. That was my favorite thing.
Next topic.
All right. Here we go. How are we doing? We've already answered that question.
We've done that one.
Okay, here we go.
Yep.
This is from either Copernic or maybe Copernicus, it's short for, but Copernic 10. You must build a team that can beat Alabama. You can use any player or coach from any other team.
Okay.
Who do you pick? And I will adjust this question a little bit to last year, our pal Richard Johnson and I did this with specific units. If we were going to build a super team to beat Alabama, where would we go with said super team? I would go, this is me, and I'll give you some time to think about this, Ty.
Yeah.
I would go probably with Justin Herbert at quarterback.
Okay.
I would go with the Wisconsin offensive line. I can't repeat any of the schools. I'd probably look at Ohio State at running back. If not running back, receiver. And if I were to go Ohio State at running back, I'll probably go Oklahoma at receiver. Defensive line is Clemson. It's a pretty easy call for me. Linebacker, I like Auburn's guys. I like Washington's guys. I will probably go Auburn there. Defensive backs, I think I'm just going to lock in LSU there with Grant Delpit and Greedy Williams.
Okay.
I think that's my answer. If I'm gonna go across the major position groups, and it did hurt not to take special teams with LSU and Cole Tracy, but I'm going to leave that open to interpretation.
I would go Trace McSorley.
And coach. Who would you go with coach-wise?
Coach. Can we bring Hugh Freeze out of retirement? He seemed to have a lot of success against Alabama.
It's a good answer.
Trace McSorley is my answer at quarterback. He does enough with his legs and with his arm, I think, to cause fits. You need a dual threat guy. I would take Ole Miss's wide receivers because they're big and very talented.
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
But we've seen them against Alabama's defensive backs.
Well, we have, but
that's why I went away from Ole Miss.
Yeah, that's a good point. Who did you go with?
Oklahoma's.
Oklahoma. I'm still gonna.
I like Hollywood Brown.
I'm gonna give Ole Miss another chance. All right.
Okay.
I agree with you. Running backs, Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take Wisconsin offensive line, sure. Clemson defensive line, sure. Auburn linebacker, I agree with that. I might go Michigan defensive backfield. Very good in the defensive backfield. Very good defensively. You could take Michigan's entire defense if you wanted.
I would take Michigan at linebacker as well. I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah. But you can make a case for
Hudson.
A variety of different answers there on the defensive side.
Yeah. Okay. So you coach wise, I hate your Trace McSorley pick, by the way.
I know. Well, you hate Trace McSorley just in general. So
I don't hate Trace McSorley. I watched him play against Michigan State last week, and now he's going to beat Alabama.
Big game quarterback.
Okay.
Big game quarterback.
It was a pretty big game.
Big game quarterback.
Next question. We got a couple Iowa State questions. Let's go to how embarrassed are all involved parties going to be when no one sees Iowa State, Texas because the game got exiled to the Longhorn Network? I totally disagree with the premise of this question. That's from Jacob.
Okay.
I loved watching Army Oklahoma on an illegal stream. There's something very bonding about everybody being in this same weird position and having to go to Twitch or Periscope or a weird stream that's installing malware as you speak, as you watch on your computer that's tracking your every movement. And that's how many of us, if this game is close, if this game is interesting, if this game has stakes, are going to watch.
It does give a feeling of mystery to it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If a tree falls in a forest kind of element.
Yeah.
Did it really happen? And this, by the way, was one of the more interesting games last year. It was I think 17-10, 17-7, Texas wins in Ames. That was the Jacob Park, maybe the last Jacob Park game for Iowa State.
Wow. Deep cut.
Thank you. And Iowa State's defense became weirdly influential. Everybody started running a crazy dime in the Big 12. I like that. Jesse wants to know, has the 4-team playoff devalued the New Year's Six? It used to be that making a New Year's Six game was a huge accomplishment. Now it seems like a consolation prize.
Well, yes and no. I think the BCS devalued. To be honest, I think the BCS devalued the bowls. Okay. The second they moved away from the old system where everyone would play whatever bowl matchups they ended up with, and then the voters would decide who the champion was. Whenever they moved away from that system, in which essentially bowl games weren't fully exhibition games the way they are now. When they moved away from that, and now to the current model where we have a quote-unquote true national championship game. We did previously or tried to with the BCS, and we do now, obviously, with the playoff system. Yeah, I think by default, it devalues those other games. I don't think there's any way around it.
I remember loving New Year's Day so much more a while ago. And it's hard to say multiple things aren't true. It's hard to say that was so much more fun when that was all we knew and all we had. When you were watching, Wisconsin, Stanford, or, whoever in the Rose Bowl, and you'd have a fun Sugar Bowl, and an Orange Bowl would be at Florida State and Florida State, Nebraska. There was that element of we're the only sport that weirdly has 4 championship games, 6 championship games. There was something that was cool about that in a very misleading way. Well, yeah, no, so I think there's 2 questions here. The question that Jesse asked us is, are those bowl games devalued? And I think the answer is yes. If you're asking me if New Year's Day as a football holiday has been devalued, then that's a resounding yes. And I'm with you on that front. Whenever they got away from that old model where we just had more games and it was more higher level matchups that we could watch on New Year's Day, that was the best. I loved that as a kid. You don't get that anymore. You have a handful of games that are spaced out, but there used to be more games on New Year's Day, and it was just a football palooza, kind of like a college football Saturday with really cool matchups that we wouldn't have otherwise. That was fun, and if there were any way to get back to that, I'd be all for it. There was something. I swear I'm going to try my best not to get gross here, Ty. Not gross, but deeply sexual. There was something when spreading all of those games around like that and knowing that was it, that's all we had. There was something about it just being, I'm really trying hard not to be gross, so I'm not going to be. All I'm going to say is, as it relates to the playoff, I think the foreplay may be better than the main event. Okay. I don't look forward to the playoff like I do I don't look forward to the actual playoff itself as much as I like seeing it all sort out in the weeks leading up to it. Yeah, I agree. The playoff is not a fun experience right now. No. Well, I mean, and part of that is the inevitability of Alabama and teams like Ohio State and Clemson being there more often than not. So there's nothing really fun. Whereas like the Rose Bowl, you'd have like Washington, Purdue one year. I really love the Rose Bowl. So that's where I stand right now. All right, let's go. Where are we going next here? Let's go to Jason Horvath wants to know, what must Michigan do to beat Ohio State? Well, so what is our state of the midseason with Ohio State and Michigan? We talked about Ohio State's defense a little bit on the show yesterday, and even on Sunday, they're giving up points. They're not as impenetrable as we've seen in recent years, probably as they could be this year. It seems like that's a real tendency, and that's part of the reason why Purdue is only like a 2-touchdown dog at home, because they score points and you can put up points against Ohio State. So I think what Michigan has to do is, first off, they need to control the clock, because Ohio State with Dwayne Haskins and all of their weapons on offense, they can strike you pretty darn quick. Michigan needs to control the clock with their rushing game. We know they like to run the ball. And Shea Patterson needs to avoid turnovers, quite frankly. I think there is that streak in him where he tries to make something out of nothing. He needs to not do that, and the defense needs to find a way to disrupt Dwayne Haskins. I don't know if the formula to beat Ohio State is as complex as it has been in previous years. Lord knows they still have the talent, but I think whatever you've got such a high-level defense the way Michigan does this year, and an offense that does seem to be improving, the calculus isn't quite as complicated now. They just need to play their best game of the year, which is no small task,
and they need to shut down certain assets, and they need to shut down certain aspects of that Ohio State offense to really give themselves a puncher's chance.
Yeah, I think Michigan can play them pretty much head up on defense. I don't think they need to do anything.
I don't think it's that complex. They need to play really solidly.
Yes, I think they have the talent on all three levels that they just play their own game and they're in a good place. The game's in Columbus, which will pose an incredible challenge. Offensively, I think that's where everything is for Michigan, because keeping this defense well rested is huge. And if they're able to generate some bigger plays on the ground with Chris Evans and Karan Higdon, and Shea Patterson continues to sort of evolve within the Jim Harbaugh, Pep Hamilton offense, if they're able to get more consistent performances from their pass catchers. I know Nico Collins is the latest to sort of step up. I think that's enormous, because I think you're right. Ohio State it has a good defense, but not a great defense right now. And maybe by the end of the season, maybe they're more of a grower. Maybe they'll come into their own. But right now, I think Michigan has if you had to give me a 0 out of 100% chance of Michigan going to Columbus and winning this game outright, probably as, I don't know, 2.5, 3.5 point dogs, whatever, somewhere around there.
Right.
What percent chance would you give it?
What percent would I give
Michigan going to Columbus
and just winning the game outright?
Correct.
Man, I'd probably give them like a 30 to 40% chance.
Yeah, I think that's where my head is at. My head had 38.
Yeah. I mean, I think
38%.
They have a pretty good chance of doing it.
Yeah. All right. So that's where we're at right now with that. That'll change. This weekend will go a long way with Michigan playing Michigan State.
Yeah.
With the success Notre Dame has had thus far since Brian Kelly, gosh, we are staring into Notre Dame, aren't we?
It all ends up
Oregon
there.
Homer episode.
Yeah.
With the success the Irish have had thus far since Brian Kelly made the switch from Brandon Wimbush to Ian Book. That's right. Beating Pitt by not 1, not 2, not 3. Do you envision more coaches in the future being proactive when it comes to switching quarterbacks prior to have it being forced upon them via losses? I think this is one of the more intriguing questions of the season overall, is managing quarterback play in general with what we've seen Nebraska losing a quarterback before the season starting, with what's happening at Georgia and Clemson. It's fascinating. Alabama.
Well, it's okay. So not all situations are created equally. And right. I bring that up. So we've had a couple instances of quarterback changes, all of which were under different circumstances. Do we count the Tua move in the national championship last year as falling under this category?
Making a change before losing? Yeah.
Making a change before losing. So that's a very recent, very notable example of it working out. And then we've had another one this year, of course, with the move to Trevor Lawrence away from Kelly Bryant. We've had it happen, obviously, at Notre Dame. Not every school has the same embarrassment of riches that Alabama and Clemson have. Right. Who knows? We might see it at Georgia before the end of the year, too. But, I hesitate to say that we're going to see more of this. I just think we're in a really extraordinary season where we knew headed in there were going to be a ton of quarterback questions around college football. And we knew that this was a possibility. We would see some quarterback changes. I just don't think we expected to see as many as we have, and to see, oh, by the way, so many of them work out. I think these are kind of extraordinary circumstances that you wouldn't see otherwise in a normal college football season. So I don't necessarily think it's a harbinger for anything to come down the line. I just think it's just sort of one of those blips on the radar where we had many situations in a very short period of time all kind of work out.
Yeah, and I think this specific situation with Notre Dame was because Notre Dame, with the talent on both sides of the ball, wasn't separating itself from average to below average teams.
Yeah, and
we also not meant to insult those teams, but we had signs that Brandon Wimbush was not leading touchdown drives where he should have been.
Yeah, and in that sense, it's very normal the way that they moved away from him. It's dramatic because it's Notre Dame, but we saw it all last season with Wimbush. We did see a little bit of Book come in big situations and perform. And though it was a little bit unexpected to bring him in and start him against Wake Forest, I feel like that's a lot less expected than the balls that Nick Saban had, quite frankly, to bring in Tua in the national championship, or even the balls that Dabo Swinney had to bring in Trevor Lawrence over Kelly Bryant. Really with no body of work. Those to me are really extraordinary, that they would have the confidence to go to those guys. Granted, Tua had a little bit of work last year beforehand, but still, those to me are incredible, that the coaches would go to guys with virtually no experience in key situations. And even this year, obviously, with Clemson. So the book move, though dramatic, is far more normal than some of the other ones we've seen.
Yeah, the Clemson one is interesting because Kelly Bryant had been good this year. I mean, obviously he hit a wall against Alabama last year, and most teams did. So we had a concept that Kelly Bryant may struggle against the very best of competition. But this wasn't, the Kelly Bryant situation wasn't Brandon Wimbush barely beating Ball State or Vanderbilt or something like that. So that's more surprising to me. But yeah, I think you're right. I think most teams should have the luxury of switching quarterbacks undefeated and only beating teams by narrow margins. That's I think the unique quality of it.
Yeah. Where are we going?
Next, maybe final question. We'll see. This because it was worded so magnificently. Chris wants to know which team has the biggest second half turnaround, because every now and then they fall apart, or because their forever is going to start tonight. Good job, Chris. Great job.
That question is a journey, man.
I tried to read it as dryly as possible to see if you would pick up what I was throwing down.
Okay. So what is
second half turnarounds?
What is the question here?
So presumably a team that has been disappointing in the first half of the season will come on strong.
Okay.
From this point on, we're recording this October 18th. So there are games tonight, actually. So if like Stanford, for example, could be one of those teams. They are playing Arizona State tonight. We'll see what happens. We may sound like idiots by the time people listen to this if they get killed by ASU. But who in your mind is a prime turnaround candidate who, let's say, has a losing record right now? Has a losing record.
Okay. Well, you throw that.
So I'll give you some candidates of teams.
Give me some options here.
So from the ACC, and I'll be realistic here. So I guess Louisville, they have pieces. They've got a really nice receiving core. They have a losing record. North Carolina, Georgia Tech, a top maybe 25-30 offense in Georgia Tech, but the defense has been kind of disappointing. Kansas State, both have losing records in the Big 12 and the Big 10. I think we can scratch Rutgers off. Losing records from the other side is just Nebraska. Maybe Nebraska has a turnaround. You haven't stopped me yet, so I'm not sensing you're feeling great about anybody.
I think. Well, I'm going to go two. One that you haven't gotten to, and one that you did. Yeah, I'm intrigued by K-State because, like we said on
Alex Barnes, fun.
Like we said on the show, I think last Wednesday and again on Sunday, if K-State just decides, F it, we're running every play, that might be more what they're equipped to do at this point. So K-State to me is one that I can see them turning around. And I'm real curious to see what happens with UCLA now, because they're 1-5.
That was going to be my answer.
Yeah, 1-5. It does seem like they're kind of making a shift offensively as well. So if that system takes and they keep having success, I think UCLA is a pretty good answer. One answer that probably won't translate to wins and losses, but just a team that I think has had a turnaround this season in many regards. Oregon State. We didn't talk about John Smith at all. The job he's doing.
I think it'll translate into some losses, but yeah.
It'll translate into losses, but there's definitely been a market improvement in the Beavers this year. And that if you're an Oregon State fan, if you're listening now, I don't know how many we have, but I do think they are better. And I hope they continue down the path that they've been going down so far this year, because there's been improvement.
It's a year zero situation.
Yeah, and absolutely.
You can tell that there is belief in Jonathan Smith, both among the players on that team, guys transferring in. They have some big name transfers coming in. Addison Gums, Tristan Gabbia, whatever. Tyjon Lindsey, also from Nebraska. Big names, big time recruits from a past couple years. UCLA is interesting to me just because we've seen the momentum start with how they played against Washington, beating Cal. They have Arizona this week. The back half of their schedule is not great, but what they look like against Utah, Oregon, USC, Stanford should be an indicator, and it should perhaps pick up their recruiting momentum a little bit, which is, I think, in need.
Yeah.
So
definitely.
I think those are my answers right now. That, you might not translate to wins, and even like Arkansas has looked pretty, they have some fight to them.
Yeah.
Even though it hasn't sort of caught in the wins column.
Some pluck. So, a little bit of pluck.
Some pluck, he says. I'll tell you one team I'm not in on. UConn. I am not in on sexy Randy Edsall's.
No.
UConn.
We haven't played Sexier Than Edsall in a while. Maybe on Wednesday we'll do it.
Can I give you a couple right now?
I mean, yeah, it's a free show.
Okay.
Free country.
It's a free show. All right. Before we get on with Jeff Schwartz.
So hold on. Here's what I want to do. Again,
Okay.
We're not editing any of this stuff out.
No.
We're enjoying ourselves here with the Q&A and we're already running close to an hour. We'll put out your Oregon chat with Jeff as like a separate thing altogether.
Okay.
Fair.
All
right, so we don't have to try and bolt those two together. We'll make that a whole separate thing, and we'll close out strong here with the Q&A.
Yeah. Okay. Are the following people sexier than Randy Edsall? This comes to us as a game that, I don't know, we started for no good reason a long time ago.
Definitely no good reason.
This is all science, Ty. You
Okay.
just tell me if objectively these coaches are sexier than Randy Edsall. And by all means, you can have every advantage and pull up a picture of Randy Edsall right now.
Yep.
To just get a sense for him, his topography.
Yep. If you're listening at home or at the office, just go to Google image search and pull up the biggest. You can filter by large images, get the biggest, highest res image you can of Randy Edsall. And if you're driving in a car, we wouldn't advise you to do this while you're driving the car, but maybe if you want to pull over somewhere and just pull it up on your phone just so that you can play the home game with us here.
All right. Let's start here with Charlie Strong.
Wow, that's a good...
I say 100%.
I think so. Charlie Strong looks like he could still play.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one's a tough one. Dabo Sweeney.
No.
I don't think that's right. Yeah. No.
I've got
Randy Edsall has him there.
I've got a split screen thing going on right here right now. And it's no contest. It's Dabo, or excuse me, it's not Dabo. It's Randy Edsall.
Okay. Paul Christ.
No. Paul Christ.
Wow. Emphatic.
Get out of here. Randy Edsall.
Scott Frost.
Still Randy Edsall. Frost is
Randy
younger,
Edsall.
but it's Randy Edsall.
Chris Peterson.
Randy Edsall.
Wow.
It's Randy Edsall.
Chris Peterson seems like he's in pretty good shape. I'm learning all sorts of things about you. Justin Wilcox.
I'm not even sure I know what Justin Wilcox looks like.
Really?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me
Okay.
pull this up.
Pull up a picture of Justin Wilcox.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know who you mean now. I probably go
okay, he says.
Well, let's be honest. I got to go Justin Wilcox here.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Will Muschamp.
Randy Edsall.
I think Randy Edsall's the answer.
Yeah.
Final, Gus Malzahn.
Randy Edsall.
Yeah, the sweater vest thing is not working out.
There's a reason that we call this game Sexier Than Edsall. It's not easy to be sexier than Randy Edsall.
This is what I'm learning.
No.
God, who knew, Ty?
This is why we play the
high
game.
bar of Randy Edsall.
You play to win the game here.
Okay. Good to know. We'll finish with something that that didn't have anything to do with college football, but somebody wanted to know. Here's our final question. Where did it go? This was Shiva Doch. Actually, this is a good, we'll do college and non-college in this. If Georgia Tech decides to move forward from Paul Johnson after this season, who do you think are prime candidates for the Georgia Tech job? A very good job, I would say, at least potentially.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so
it's academics come into it with Georgia Tech.
Right.
Being the number 2 in your state it's tricky, but a state that's filled with talent and in a region that's filled with talent in a conference where you can win a good chunk of games.
Right.
Desirable city.
Right. Man.
Lane train? I don't think it's probably going to happen with the lane train. That's a pretty big jump.
Yeah. As long as it's not the option for me, you'd have to move away from the option. Don't stick with that option system.
I love the option.
I know you love it. I think it shades the way you look at that job. But
I know.
I don't think the answer here is Ken Neomatalolo. Okay.
Disagree.
So
who do you have? Give me some names. Neil Brown at Troy.
Neil Brown's
A lot of people thought he was going to be a growing name.
He's a decent name.
Scott Satterfield, App State. I don't know what more you want from him. Blake Anderson at Arkansas State.
This is me Googling feverishly.
Jason Candle, Toledo.
I would want a guy from the South.
Okay.
I would want someone from down south.
How about this? This was somebody whose name we mentioned not 2.5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
How about Charlie Strong?
Interesting. It's an interesting name.
Their defense would be instantly improved.
He's got good familiarity with the South.
Correct.
Would he want to leave South Florida? Is Georgia Tech a better job than South Florida?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, it for sure is. Yes. It's an ACC job, and it's a quality ACC
Charlie
job.
Strong loves
the
Florida,
Orange
though.
Bowl.
He loves the state of Florida.
I know. You're not that far away.
Well, okay.
You could convince people from Florida to move to Atlanta. Atlanta's a great city.
Yeah. This is true.
You don't have to sit in traffic that much if you're a college student.
Right.
I think Charlie Strong it's a good option.
I need time to think about this. I was unprepared for this question.
That's okay. You are prepared for the second part of Shiva Doc's question. This is from Reddit, by the way. Best national fast food chain, Ty.
Chick-fil-A.
First, let's okay.
Chick-fil-A.
That's a good answer.
Chick-fil-A is the answer. The only answer.
How do you define, and Chick-fil-A fits this, how do you define fast food? What is Chipotle fast food?
No, that would be casual dining or casual fast. Yeah. I think something with a drive-through is what I would classify as best fast food or a fast food, traditional fast food. For me, the answer is Chick-fil-A.
Do you have a favorite fast food burger?
I like the Wendy's classic single with cheese.
Ooh, wow. Didn't even have to think about it.
No.
You didn't have to shuffle through your Whopper experiences, your Big Mac experiences.
The problem with the Whopper is that there's too much going on. And there's so much burger that the bun falls apart. And I read something a long time ago on the McDonald's front that if you take the burger out of the bun and throw it out on like your back deck, that the bacteria won't even attack it, that it's not real.
Yeah, there's enough preservatives to fight off nature.
And though I've probably had a quarter pounder here and there since reading that, I got to be honest, it scares the hell out of me. So
okay,
the answer would definitely not be them.
What percent of the Chick-fil-A menu do you explore?
I'll usually go if I'm feeling dangerous.
By the way, Chick-fil-A, not a sponsor.
No, not a sponsor. I'll go if
None of these people are.
If I'm feeling dangerous, I'll go spicy chicken sandwich. But I've experimented with the just Chick-fil-A sandwich, the regular Chick-fil-A sandwich. I've done the Cool Wrap combo, which I think is the number 6. I've done the nugs. Everyone's done the nugs or the chicken tendos.
Do they currently have spicy nugs?
I don't know. They probably have sauce that could satisfy that.
Yeah, but I'm talking
for you.
Nug itself being spicy. That's where Wendy's has an advantage. They have strong spicy nugs.
Right. No, I don't think so. I've done salads. I've done the soup. I think I've done like the milkshake, some of the ice cream that they offer. Yeah, I've had a good swath of the menu.
My answer may be Jack in the Box.
Does Jack in the Box have a drive-thru?
Eat fast food. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay. You could tell that I'm not versed in the ways of Jack in the Box.
Jack in the Box, I honestly, I will eat McDonald's for breakfast in an airport. And this isn't for any real reason. I just like cooking. I think fast food is delicious. It's just terrible for you.
Right.
I like Taco Bell. McDonald's is fine. I like a McDonald's cheeseburger dipped in sweet and sour. Fine. Chick-fil-A is good. Jack in the Box is way out in the forefront in terms of all-day breakfast or a breakfast jack at 1 a.m. if you want it, 5 p.m. And everybody started copying them. Their tacos are disgustingly wonderful. It's like a mystery meat situation. The whole thing is fried together. It's not, they don't just fry the shell and then put in some meat and lettuce. They fry the whole damn thing. Their spicy chicken sandwich is good. Good shakes. Jack in the Box, my answer.
Does In-N-Out have a drive-through?
Yeah, I mean, it's by default. Yeah.
Oh, right. Duh.
By default, in and out. It's a drive-through. But I think In-N-Out is delicious. Their fries aren't that good, and it's not a national fast food chain. I don't think they go past Utah, Texas.
We don't have any. We don't have any Jack in the Box franchises over here in PA.
Have you had Jack in the Box?
I don't think so.
It's a weird, terrific experience, Ty.
Okay.
You can look into a bag and get some mozzarella sticks, some egg rolls, breakfast sandwich,
but
some tacos.
if you take the burger out of the bun and throw it out on your back patio, will the bacteria go after it?
Almost assuredly not. Yeah. No, I'm sure it's in the same class. And they have the sourdough option, Ty.
Okay.
You get a burger on some sourdough. Okay. It's great.
All right. Well, this has been fun. I don't think we've got time for any more questions. Here is the deal. We'll do more of these as the year progresses, we promise. There's always demand for a Q&A show. If you've got questions, if you want questions answered, maybe you sent them in today, we didn't get to them. We will get to them at some point this season, whether it's a separate podcast, whether it's just something we post on one of the social channels. Keep your eyes and ears peeled for when we might do something like that. We'll do it again soon, we promise. The other thing that we'll add, if you're looking at your podcast feed and you see an Oregon show come up after this one, it's because this is a thing that we're gonna try to do more of. So Dan's gonna talk to Jeff Schwartz, our good friend Jeff Schwartz, about Oregon football. Next week, we're gonna try and talk Notre Dame. We'll start off with two of our Homer pods, but then we really do truly want to migrate into talking about some other teams with other beat writers, just to try and get the lay of the land, whether it's a team of prominence, whether it's not a team of prominence, just someone with an interesting storyline. Feel free to reach out, let us know which teams you might be interested in hearing more about if we talk in a little bit more detail, because we think it'd be a cool thing to do this time of year. Sound good?
Yeah. Only homers allowed.
All right. Well, for that guy over there, Dan Rubenstein, thank you, sir, for collecting all these questions, for putting them in a document, and for not buzzing me the whole show. I didn't do the radio thing.
I didn't want to throw you off your game, Ty. Come on. I'm considerate.
All right. Well, I'm Ty. He's Dan. We're going to catch you all momentarily, actually, if you're listening to us in binge mode. But in the meantime, if you don't listen to any of these shows, or at least the next show that we're doing, we'll catch you all on Sunday. In the meantime, stay safe.
Peace.